like a job? What the fuck? West End Festival or am I? He's always like with the picture, like, where's my banner? Doesn't mean you can do the same as to... My turn next time.
Alright, we should get into it. So we're running late. Sorry guys, sorry to keep you waiting. How are you all? Good. 10 out of 10? 8 out of 10? Alright, more coffee needed? So, head to Joey Zazzler's, get yourself a coffee. If you don't have one already, tell them you're on Morning Startup, thanks to these beautiful people at TechOn. But
this is Scott Blue. My name's Dave Newman. We're here every 2 weeks without fail. Sometimes.
Maybe fail once or twice. Generally not.
Get in the way.
We talk about startup stuff. Who's doing a startup? Good. Who has dev teams and who's a software developer? Cool, Bruce. And who needs to communicate with software developers? Good. Okay, good. So everyone's kind of in space
Bruce
for today.
Yes.
So we've got an awesome presenter we're going to get to in a minute, but first of all, we just need to get through some stuff.
We do. Slides.
Shameless plugs and announcements. We like to know who you guys are. This is your time to sort of stand up, give a bit of a 20-second pitch on what it is you do, what brought you along today, so that when we get to the half an hour of networking at the end of this, you know who to go and speak to. Who wants to go first? Don't all jump at once. Whoa! Settle down. Oh, good on you.
Hey, I'm Kyle, and I'm working on a startup to help AI teams with their data. So if you need any help with your data, come up to me and happy to help. You can also visit my website at contra-ai.com.
That's the way it's done. Good job.
Antigua is it Antigua's really kind of like making a shitload of money out of the .ai.
Oh, really?
The domain, a little Caribbean country. Yeah.
Good one.
It does. I think
Yeah.
I read a report, something like it brings in something ridiculous, millions and millions of dollars
I bet.
every year to their GDP, which is, I guess, fair play to them. So.
Like Tuvalu with .tv.
Exactly.
Far out. Startup idea 5069. By a country that's got the next awesome domain.
There you go.
Any other shameless plugs, announcements? Awesome. Just need the mic, so for the live streaming folks.
So my name's Julian. I'm originally from Perth, but I've been living in Sydney for a couple of years, and just back from my sister's birthday. But I work for Innovation Bay, and I run their angel investor program. So we're always looking for companies to pitch, or if anyone's interested in joining a national network of angels, then interested to have a chat.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Innovation Bay, Angel, you head up that sort of
Is it
division.
still going here? I'm not sure, because I know it was Derek and Carly were doing it originally,
Yeah,
Innovation
Carly was.
Bay. Is it still going over here?
It's a bit different. It's changed a lot since what it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I'm just going to point that in your direction.
It's changed a lot to what it was a couple of years ago, but my boss is actually speaking to Derek next week, and we're looking to try and get because we've got the angels, we've got the VCs, and we've got founders as well, so trying to create that national presence as well.
Certainly a good time in the next sort of 12 months, I think, to be creating a new business or a new startup. If you read the world markets, I think we are definitely going into recession. And I think that if we look at the, I'm not all doom and gloom, I'm a bear. But I know it's just if you look at when a lot of the good, biggest startups were founded and started, it was all during a recession or during those periods. So, who else? Gentleman here.
My name's Paul. I'm doing a bit of podcasting and just trying to find some good news stories. And when I saw the announcement on Meetup, my intuition told me to come here and see what unfolds.
Cool.
I know nothing about the world you guys live in, so
Nor do
that's
we.
one of the reasons why I'm here. So, here we go.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, hopefully you find some good news stories. What's the general topic of the podcast?
It's sort of motivational, positive news, because a lot of doom and gloom going on. But as, yeah.
Hey, look,
It-
every cloud has a silver lining.
Yeah.
There's always an
Absolutely.
opportunity. Always an opportunity.
Until you die. But, yeah. But there might be a silver lining on the other side. But yeah, as Perth is changing, it's such a young city and it's changing, and I'm just covering those demographics of the changes, the positive changes. Yeah,
Awesome. Okay. And what's the podcast called?
working on that.
Working on that.
No, not really. I'm still working on it.
But that should be your podcast
There's your
name.
title right there.
There you go. There's
You're
your
welcome.
podcast name. Working on that.
Everyone go to Spotify and search for Working on That. All right. Any other shameless plugs? Announcements?
Yeah.
Anything going on in Perth that you want? No? All right. Well, we are running a little late, so let's plug on. We do this every... Sorry, we've got a little banner here in the middle, just to make it known. We'll get to those guys
Glenn,
in a
can you
minute.
take a picture? And then we can take it out of the way. So at least we can know it was up. So here we go. One second.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Send that to me.
G'day Cam, if you're watching. So Founder Sundowner, first Wednesday of every month, come along to Nowhere Man Brewery. Fun fact, we've actually got Reese from Nowhere Man Brewery. He's going to be at the next morning startup in 2 weeks' time. They're going through a transaction at the moment. They just got acquired by Otherside Brewery, so you've got this whole conglomeration thing going on with all the kind of breweries in Australia, really. So he's going to talk about that whole journey. It's going to be really cool. So if you're thinking of doing a hospo kind of gig, it should be some good insights. But
Western Fest. Who's got tickets? Cool. It's fast selling out. If you want a discount, it's on the 4th to the 8th, all locally. There is no Rotto Fest this year, but there is Coast, which will be happening up, I think it's like Scarborough Beach Way, that sort of way.
Yep.
And if you want a discount code, go to the West Fest website and put in WTF 2023.
every morning. Just make sure you
Morning.
purchase the
I'll just-
founder
Yeah.
ticket type. It doesn't work with any of the other ticket types. So, founder, startup, whatever it is. Cool. I don't know if this is still going, but it's in my
I
slide
think
deck.
I think this is sold out now,
It's finished?
but just
Okay.
check. If you might be lucky, somebody might drop out.
If you want to put a stand up at West Tech Fest, go and email them and express your interest.
Massive thank you to the New Industries Funds and all the cool, awesome people at the Government of Western Australia Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and
Innovation.
Jitsi, as they're otherwise known. Without them, we wouldn't be able to stream to the regions. Thank you to Jürgen and the team, but they essentially paid for them to come here and stream it to the regions for us. If you haven't heard of the Innovator of the Year, it's just gone or happened. I know that it's
Yeah,
more in the
no,
process.
the awards night is coming up.
Is
It's
it?
been invited
Right.
last night, yeah.
Cool, perfect. And obviously, if we look at the Waves program, which has helped form 3 new VCs here in WA, you've got Quokka, Fund WA, and most importantly, I'm slightly biased, Purpose Ventures. And the last thing, if you haven't checked out Dealroom, wa.dealroom.co, go out and check out a lot of information about different startups. Potentially put your startup on there, share some information.
Yeah, they're always looking for the data for the dealroom.co, so put your information up on there if you can. Thank you to all those. All that awesome camera equipment, live streaming, lots of things, weddings, parties, anything. If you need live streaming, head to perthvideo.com.au. And you might have noticed Ammo is helping us out as well.
Who's Ammo? Yeah, no.
Ammo.
It's
They're
a
great
running
guys.
joke because we forgot the banner. We couldn't find the banner generally because it was locked in the cupboard, and it was mentioned. So we were like, we will never forget.
The battery's up. But,
We were like, we will never forget.
the battery's up. But seriously, so they have go to Spotify or whatever you use for your
It's
podcasts.
awesome. It is
Subscribe to Weird Growth. Really good interviews
good.
with Perth-based founders and startup folks. Also check out their marketing services because they know what they're talking about. Beecham Group, lovely bloke up the back. If you need some
Do you, want
talent.
do you want to do your own?
No, because now I have to run down the back with the freaking microphone. 30 seconds, go.
Morning everyone, my name's Glenn Beauchamp. I run Beecham Group. I've been in the industry for 27, 28 years. I guess the key thing that I'll help most startup founders do is to take your educated guesswork in terms of how you hire, to put it into a proper, systemised, predictable way to hire talent, hopefully ahead of the curve of when you need it. So if you want some insights on what's happening around the place, how to maybe take advantage of some opportunities in terms of people and obviously young people who want to get a start in the industry, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Nice work. 5 seconds to spare too. Good job. All right. What's we got? Keep space. Now we have some food at the back there. Help yourself whenever or during the networking time. That's thanks to these guys. If anyone's in e-commerce and they need to ship things around the place, they have a warehouse here in Melbourne and a warehouse in Perth. Where am I? I need more.
There's
more
only
coffee.
one left. There's only one more morning startup left.
Yes, and 3PL, all of that stuff, that's an acronym that means things to you. Get around, keep space, and thank you for the food, Jesse and team. And wonderful people, we're talking about developers today. Who needs cost-effective developers? Because, I don't know, these wonderful people in Perth, they've got a mortgage to pay, rent to pay in Perth, pay those prices. If you want to get slightly cheaper developers, head to TechOn and they can help you out with that.
Good team. Very good team.
Sorry, just diss all the Perth-based developers, but yeah, they're a good team.
We'll run through
All right.
these. Space Cubes, if you're looking for a co-working space, looks like they won the war here in WA for, obviously, WeWork, or We Broke is the headline I saw.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, for those who didn't know, WeWork have filed for bankruptcy. We'll see how that works here locally. But if you're looking for co-working space, check out Space Cubes. You've got this space, Riff. Sorry, is this Riff? Yeah.
Yes, this is
Yeah,
Riff.
Riff. You've got Third, you've got Flux, you've got some over in the eastern states as well. But so if you're looking for a great space, they give us this space for free, and we bring beautiful people like you here to experience it. If you haven't subscribed to Startup News. Comes out every Friday. Amazing bit of nuggets of information, tells you who's doing what and in the local ecosystem. Plus8, if you want to learn some bits, go and check out Plus8. They've got 2 accelerators, the pre-accelerator and the main accelerator, where you can get your hands on roughly about 80 grand's worth of funding. They've just had an awesome trip to the UK. They've just come back all sort of full of energy and looking to sort of flip north, which is great. Startup WA, advocates to the government for all of us here to kind of advocate for new ideas and stuff. And last but not least, Tech Board, Peter and the team at Tech Boards. If you haven't claimed your profile, go on there. Great way of getting information out into the ecosystem.
Yeah. Well done, Dave. That's
Let's get through it.
Just like to put that up for people that are new to the startup community. These are some really good supportive organisations that you should be around. First step, just go and subscribe to Startup News and you'll get it all in your inbox. Cool. Get in touch with us. We're pretty hard to find. Morning Startup. Just Google that and you'll find our things. We're a Morning Startup on all the things. And we're always looking for good speakers. So we've only got 2 left. We've got this one and the one in 2 weeks' time. Then we're going to break over December and January because we clash with West Tech Fest and you should all be going to West Tech Fest instead of Morning Startup. So yeah, there won't be any during those 2 months, but then next year we'll start up again every 2 weeks. So if you're interested in doing a presentation, if you've got something with the Perth startup community would love to know, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. And that's formalities out of the way. So you haven't seen that before.
It's getting better. We've been doing this for 6 months. We've got to laugh and a clap. We've got to laugh and a clap. Before it was crickets, and now we've got to laugh and a clap. That's progress. Product fit, or product market fit is getting there.
There's all the regulars. Get into the talk. All right, which we'll do now. We'll sit down and shut up. So I've got an awesome presenter. Thank you so much for jumping in sort of at the last minute as well. We had a bit of a speaker disaster, but yeah, he's a fractional CTO, is that the way you would call yourself? Working with heaps of startups and scale-ups over the past 15 to 20 years, knows this stuff, and has learned a few things about how to communicate or how to run that communication cycle in your dev team more effectively. I'm super interested to hear how that goes, so please make him welcome, Lee Goldsworthy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's get the present up.
And now we figure out how the dual wield, that's what I'm talking about. See how our clickers go. All right, let's get stuck into it. Tell me if this feels familiar. There was a conversation, a thing was discussed, some shared understanding was forged, some people wrote some code, some features were deployed, and then everybody left happy. No? Right, cool. Also, we thought. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about how we embrace the why rather than the how in communicating between narrowly engineers and domain experts, but more broadly, subject matter experts of any stripe and somebody who isn't a subject matter expert in your domain. So it'll be a little bit techie, but please feel free to read this a bit more broadly as we get into it. Right, so first up, I'd like to see some hands. Who was in bed before midnight? Geez, that's actually pretty good. I wasn't. I was working on this presentation. Who was asleep before midnight? Okay, so half of you were bashing away on your phones. Good work. We know that one. Who ate a healthy breakfast? That's 3. 4. Here we go. That's actually a surprisingly strong result when I asked this question. Who exercised for 30 minutes or more before getting here for 7:30? 3, 4, 3.5. 3.5. I'll pay that. That's also pretty good for this type of audience. You people, the last 4 that answered yes, clearly it's skim milk with your success for breakfast. I am not one of you people. I'm so impressed and I'm kind of slightly intimidated. So me and the other 80% of this room, who substituted the prior 4 things with coffee? Yeah? Yeah, cool. 80%. I was right. There we go. Who has an innate sense of Newtonian inertia? Anyone? Newton's first law? Anybody? An object at rest will stay at rest. That is the other 80% of you. Yes? Are you the dog on the left or the cat on the right? Okay. It's all right. I know it's early. I promise that it's not going to be too dense. It's going to be reasonably lighthearted today, and we'll just try and pick the eye teeth out of what is a massive topic, which is communicating with subject matter experts in a concise and valuable way. Cool. So I'm Lee, 20 years in tech, about 15 years in startups and scale-ups, most recently 2 in my own organizations that I founded, 1 successful, 1 an abject failure as a startup, and then a couple of local scale-ups here in WA, one of which has pretty global reach and was good fun when we were pushing 10 million active users a day. So some interesting size scale things and some hilarious abject failures, and I hope to share a little bit of my experience about these with all of you. I have broken most things. In fact, there are vanishingly few things I haven't broken. I think my favorite thing that I broke was ServiceNet. It's the part of the WA internet that connects all of the state government primary schools, high schools, and government buildings with all of the employees of state government departments. Yeah, I took that off the line. It's called null routing as a network engineer, if anybody in the room has come across that one. The good bit is, it doesn't really matter what mistake you make. You will learn from it, and the bigger it is, the more you will learn from it. I never null routed anything ever again after I had 7 engineers looking at me and the red on the dashboards. That was great fun. But breaking things is actually good, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. I have fixed most things. There were vanishingly few things that carked it that I couldn't get back together, or that I couldn't get some help to help get back together. The impacts were pretty low, and I have scaled most things, be it networks, hardware, software. I've played with a wide variety of different tooling and supply chains, and it's all fun in different creative and explodey ways, but I encourage you go wide, not deep. Cool. I'd like you to tell me a little bit about everybody here. Left hand up if you're a founder. Excellent. Keep that hand up. Right hand up if you are a techie. Cool. We have some dual-wheeled people here. That means you have the skills to both find the bridge and burn it when you get there. Excellent. So that's good to know. About 1/4 tech, about 3/4 non-tech, with a few dual-wheeled experts in the middle. Is this a story about waterfall? We've all heard, or all seen this piece of art. It's kind of been done to death. It's poking fun at the long lead time, multiple roles, analysis, and then engagement processes that come with large enterprise software projects, but technology projects or engineering projects in general. I don't really reckon this is about waterfall, though. Does anybody else have any opinions about what this problem describes? Anyone? We have a hand, a couple in the middle. Scott? It's all right. We have a microphone.
What? Was that Scott or my Scott? Anyway, I reckon that is in regard to like a want, a need, and a demand. For like, that's what it's about the customer.
It's about the customer. I like this. Anybody else? We had another hand here.
Not talking to customers.
I like it. And one more.
I was going to say that looked like a communication problem to me.
Oh, look at that. You've read my slides. I reckon it's about communication. Sure, talking to the customer, that is a communication challenge. Wants and needs, this is a communication challenge. All of these things are about us not effectively getting a shared mental model created, which is the irritating psychology speak for when I say some things and you hear those words, you understand the same concept when I've said those words. Seems really simple, but we've all had that experience of walking into a meeting, being present, writing down the decisions. The decisions, everybody was on board with the wording, but then 2 weeks later, from the same words, we came out with a different outcome. Isn't that magic? We'll talk about glossaries later. Cool. So that was Waterfall. Agile fixed all that. Hallelujah! It's solved. This is how we solved it with Agile. Deloitte was kind enough to put together the Agile landscape, and it shows you all the tools that you need to use to easily, quickly solve this problem as a founder. Right. That doesn't even show the whole agile landscape. That shows the first 2/3. It goes off the bottom. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in a little bit. Can you see the one that we're going to talk about today? It's easy, right? It's this one. It's feature. We're going to talk about how to communicate about a feature. It's such a small slice. In fact, to quote Nick Cave, it's a microscopic cog in a catastrophic plan. But the idea is you don't need to be a specialist in all these things. If you get the communication right and you get the continuous improvement part right, then all the rest comes naturally. And that's actually the core definition of Agile. Are you continuously improving as a team? Everything else is a lot, apparently, of high-paid consultant fruit, but not necessary. Cool. Communication patterns. Who has, hands up, seen any of user stories, task flows, needs pyramids, or feature canvases? Yes? No? About half? Cool. Can you all be upstanding, please? If you're physically able and comfortable, please jump up on your feet. Right, yeah, I couldn't figure out a way to remember myself to prompt this, so you guys get a GIF of people in Law and Order. Right, and then we'll get rid of that GIF because it's irritating. So, keep standing if you've tried one of these 4 things on the left. Hey, look at that. Keep standing if you're still using one of these 4 things on the left. Cool. That's about 20% of us. Nice. Keep standing if you think it's useful even though you're still using it. Down to less than half, oh, down to about 1/3, right. Keep standing if your team love it. 10% or less. Magic. That's what we're going to talk about today. Right. Of the people that were still standing, could we get a microphone over this side? Who wants to volunteer which pattern you're still using?
I don't want to jump ahead too much, but user stories are very important because it deals with the why. If there's any decisions, developers need to come back to why we're even doing this in the first place.
Magic, thank you very much. I see you've already snuck ahead and had a look at what's coming up in this presentation. Excellent answer. Cool, same feedback, thanks very much. Right, so we have a pattern for user story. It's one of the most common ones, and it's probably one of the easiest ones to get started with. Who knows it? Quick show of hands. Who's come across it before, used it? About half, 2/3, good? All right. It has a really simple format. As a person, I want to do a thing to get some benefit. Those are the 3 pieces. If you can describe those 3 pieces, congratulations, you know how to use user stories. But let's break it down. Why is it those 3 things? So, as a person, it boils down to a simple statement of who. Who is the thing? Who is the person you're doing this thing for? The I want to do a thing is a what statement. It's at some stage in the future, something will be different. And then to get some benefit. That's just a why statement. It's really so simple. User stories are just a way of saying who, what, and why in a structured order, preferably with some brevity or conciseness. Cool. Now we have patterns for the patterns? Right. The fundamental principles common to all of the patterns that I showed you, of which user stories we dipped into a little bit there, are they all have who, they all have some combination of the above. Who, what, why, and from the title of the talk, they have no how. The last part of the journey that we're going to talk about today, it is a part, but the last part of the journey is the how component. And as a person, I want to do a thing to get some benefit. It doesn't say how they want to do the thing or how they want to get that benefit. It just describes the thing or the benefit. And this is what we're really going to lean into a little bit today. Cool. Can anyone guess what the next section of the presentation is? We're talking about the who. Right. I thought I was going to go for a GIF of the band, but maybe I'm showing my age. There's some grey hairs here. I didn't think most people would get the band The Who, so we're going for some late 2000s TV. Right. Who? This component is also known as often the persona or the user. Anybody who is really deep with user stories may want to quibble. Come fight me after about this. That's all right. We can have a good conversation. It has some characteristics, and a lot of things will have this top characteristic. It contains know-how. It is harmless on the surface. Like you think, users? Yeah, cool. I can describe a user pretty easily for my startup, for my early stage ecosystem. But it has some real depth, some kind of surprising depth. So, Dalai Lama seems harmless enough on the surface, but has some depth. Triton, Greek mythology, anybody? Sea god? No. Has some real depth? Bad pun? No. Right, too early. Let's keep going. Right. The user. It's simple. That's how we describe the who. The user wants to do this thing to get some benefit, right? Cool. We have staff users and customer users. You have people inside your team that might be users, and they're different from the people that pay for the thing. Okay, right. How about the funnel stage? Who here only has users? They don't have users that have come to your site but haven't signed up. They have users that have come to your site and created an account but aren't paying yet. And they have users that are now paying and get access to different kinds of benefits and features. Cool. We now realize we have a sales funnel, and this fits into our who. Prospect is pre-sign up. Lead has signed up but hasn't given you 1 cent yet. And customer, by and large, is somebody who has given you 1 cent or more. Cool. Again, we can quibble about the details of your sales funnel stage definitions. Come find me after. Next, customer channel. Who just keeps getting deeper? We can split the customer channel into B2C or B2B. Is it businesses that are buying your products? They have really different behaviors and buying patterns and buying lead times and different user interface needs and different engagement needs and different communication needs than your B2C users, who is somebody who's turning up to buy a fast-moving digital good with a credit card for $12. So, if we're in a two-sided marketplace, we have both of these types of users and both of these funnels. It gets even more fun, and they have discrete needs, and your user experience designer cares about you differentiating between them, and your developers care about you differentiating between them. Cool. We just covered a whole lot of detail about just one part, the who, and we agreed on some terms. And those terms mean a thing to one of us, but if we said them to somebody else in our team and expected them to infer all that knowledge, that would be what we described on the first slide, which is we got into a room, we said some words, we agreed on those words, we went out and we did slightly different things because we had different definitions for those words. You need a glossary, and your glossary is probably blank. And it should not be blank, because you should stop prioritizing creating new features, and you should put just a little bit of effort into some shared understanding tooling for the broader team. Show of hands for who here has a glossary in their organization. 1, 2, 2. Whoa, that's why I put this meme in here. If you take one thing away from today, start a glossary. It'll be really simple. You can even steal some of the customer user role mappings that I've got here from this slide, and that'll be a nice foundation for the first commits or edits to your glossary. Wicked, here. Personas, advanced who. This is where you get into target markets and market segments and employer and demography and the experience and skills and needs and... Okay. Crashed. It ran into a problem when I became sidetracked with personas. Sorry, too deep for this session. There will be another session later if anybody's keen. We can talk about personas. They're amazing, but you don't need that level of detail now. Just stick with the basic user definitions in the flowcharts that I showed you earlier. All right, let's move on to the what section, apparently. What? I love this GIF. I just have to use it in every presentation. So, the what, also known as goal. Or, incorrectly, scope. But, again, come fight me afterwards. We can have a good conversation about what the definition of scope is and how it differs from goal. Characteristics. Like the other ones, who would have thought? It contains no how. Who here reckons that they regularly get the what described to them, or they regularly successfully describe the what without also telling that subject matter expert how to do the thing? Hands up if you reckon you succeed at describing the what, but you don't tell them how to do their job. That's 1, 2, cool. I don't get to put my hand up. I suck at this. In fact, 20 years in, everlasting vigilance is what it takes to not try and mentally shortcut the process and say, oh, hey, what I really just need you to do is add that field to that page. What that doesn't do is let your subject matter expert use their brain. What we really want is to hire people for their decision-making capability and their brain. And if you use the how when you describe the what, you're preventing them from using their brain by insisting on them using your brain. And that's not the most efficient way to hire people. I suggest AWS Mechanical Turk or ChatGPT if that's what you're planning on doing. Cool. What's also describe a future state? That means we'll talk a little bit about using tenses when describing the what in the future, because there are some powerful ways to swap around past and future tense when describing what's. Depends on different scenarios. So, that slide came faster than I thought. I thought that was about 3 away. Let's get into it. So, a future tense for a what is, I want to do a thing. And we see this in user story framing. It's always a future tense. As a person, I'd like to do a thing to get some benefit. We can also do a past tense. And that just means that you prefix your what with a when done. So you say, when done, I want to be able to do this thing. Congratulations. Now you have 2 different ways of coming at the same what. And these 2 verbal things that you can play out in your mind will help you figure out which one you're more comfortable phrasing it as. I strongly recommend flipping around the tense if you're having trouble describing your what. Cool. So in practice, a what? Oh, how am I going for time, by the way? 15? Beauty. You poor buggers. Oh, I'll just get a microphone up here.
Need to run your mic here?
Yeah, microphone up this way.
Why wouldn't you use present tense?
Because I couldn't think of a great example. During the question period, if you have a great example for a use case for a present tense, then I'd love to hear it and we can share that with the broader audience.
Passing the problem.
So, the what in practice, you can see here we've used the user story construction. So the what is that second component. As a B2C lead, I want to use Apple Pay so that it's easier to start using paid features. This is a pretty plausible kind of construction. You imagine that you have a B2C product, you have people that have signed up but are not yet paying, so they're on the free version, and you have an existing credit card payment method. What you'd like to do is offer more flexibility so that they can get the benefit of easier start for paid features, especially if they're signing up on their phone. Something like Apple Pay or Google Pay, much more powerful. So this is a fairly basic construction of a user story with a what statement. Oh, what? I reckon there's a whole bunch of really good bits that we get into here that follows on from the what, which is that benefit, the why, which we're about to get into, where we stop talking about why should we do this or what's the value of doing this, because I reckon there's value in us doing this, and we craft some metrics for ourselves. You might talk about a North Star metric. Amplitude has a really good handbook on how to adopt a new North Star metric inside your organization. And then the data that we collect and the techniques and the tools that we use to collect data within each of those metrics. I've gotten too deep, and this is another presentation topic, isn't it? Okay. Come talk to me later if you're interested in about how to set good quality metrics for your startup. It doesn't have to be technology. I'm probably a little bit deeper on the technology-related metrics, and there's all kinds of depth here. That's a half-hour talk unto itself. Let's move on to the rest of the why. Cool. The why, also known as the problem, the pain point, or the challenge, and sometimes, incorrectly, the value. Come chat to me afterwards if you think that there is a meaningful qualitative measure of value in the why. I reckon that's another interesting conversation for us to disagree about. Characteristics. Who would have thought? Contains no how. A great why should also be solution independent for the same reasons previously described. Don't be the zombie that eats the brains of your subject matter experts. Instead, just describe the who, what, and why, and let them use their brains for the how. Cool. Or at the very least, have a conversation with them about it. So the why also describes future state, in this context anyway, for user stories. Let's talk about some techniques. So the why is really good for broadening a conversation. I love the question, what's the problem that we're solving here? Who has had somebody come to you, if you're a founder, had an engineer come and say, oh, we absolutely need to implement CI/CD pipelines and automated testing, and you've not really understood what the content of that is, but your engineers seem really enthusiastic about it being an important thing that your organization invests time on. Or the other way around, who has had a non-engineer come to you and say, oh, what we really need is this field on this form with these values in the drop-down. It's like, yeah. Anybody? Have you been on either side of either of those conversations? Yes? No? Quarter? 15%? Right, flagging. I'll move on. It's also really good for deepening a conversation. You can now pick a component of what they've described and say, why do we value that? Talk to me more about the purpose of us solving this problem. And with these two questions, you can take just about any description of any meaningful, productive activity inside your startup. Doesn't matter if you're an engineer or a subject matter expert or a founder, everyone can and should be using these questions on a regular basis to extract the how from the concept and get a better understanding of what you want to change and why we value changing it. All right. So the cool bit about these two questions is you can just keep repeating them for the same topic until you get to the true value. There's even a pattern in here on that massive agile landscape thing with 120 different dots. One of them was called the 5 whys. Asking why 5 times in a row will irritate the hell out of your coworker, but aside from that, it will probably get to something that is solution independent and maybe even what independent or goal independent, and will get you some visibility of a why that you might not have had previously. Right. So as a line of questioning, it reveals the solution assumptions. It reveals the goal assumptions. And it drives that conversation about who it is that cares about why we're doing the thing. So mostly you can see this who, why, what, and how are just, like with the trees at the beginning of the tree swing at the beginning of this prezzo, they're just a function of communication. Anyone? Memes? Too young? Too old? I don't know, somewhere in the middle. We have a few yeses. Right. The standard lived experience of devs in early stage tech companies, up to about 3 devs, is that your founder is busy bashing out one-line requests by email or Slack, and they come in thick and fast, and you barely have time to raise them into Jira before they've moved on to raising the next one, let alone having a meaningful conversation about who, why, and what. This is an important opportunity for you to increase the overall team product engineering velocity by slowing the pace of the features and asking some better questions. It's a false economy to be dashing out one-line, loosely described nuggets of solution. when instead you could be slowing it down and being a little bit more effective with a smaller volume of higher value pieces of work. Cool. So, the how. It's also known as solution, or sometimes incorrectly as code, or infrastructure if you're one of those people. I really like this next one. Who here has heard of a tech spike? Hands up if you've heard of it. 1, 2, 3. Cool. We'll take the word tech out of it, and we'll just call it a spike. A spike is where you choose to do a piece of work with the intention of learning, not shipping or finishing. When there is a piece of work which is too large for you to safely estimate, and you go, oh God, I think that's going to take me 2 weeks, but I don't know, I'm guessing. That inner pain when somebody asks you to estimate, that's when you go, Lee told me about a concept called a spike, where I ring fence 2 hours and I learn about this thing and I come back and I have that estimate conversation again, or that how likely are you to get that done in 2 weeks conversation again. After tech spikes, or a spike on any concept where learning is the outcome rather than delivery is the outcome, then you now have more detail, which is great for estimates. Estimates are what your engineers, or, well, what everybody's week planning revolves around. Inaccurate, yes, because there are two things that are hard in technology. Caching, estimating, and off-by-one errors. So estimates are difficult. We will get them wrong on a regular basis. That's okay. Being a little bit less wrong is what we're going for with estimates, and spikes are a great way to be a little bit less wrong about how it is you estimate things, or how you ask your engineers to estimate things on your behalf. The how, or the solution, is great for assessing value, not because you can peer inside with the solution whether or not the user really thinks that feature is great and they'll sign up as a result of it, but because with the estimate, you can now do a little bit of kind of back of the postage stamp math. I won't say envelope because it's a bit more bucket chemistry than back of the envelope. And you can divide the expected value by the total amount of effort, and you kind of get a number. And that will tell you whether or not this thing that is kind of useful but takes 2 weeks would be better off being swapped out for these 3 things that you could do in 2 weeks that each get you a smaller increment of value. So this is when we get to the how, when we're looking at assessing the value, when we're looking at producing estimates. And that means it's best when last. All right. How to ask good questions. We talked a little bit about the problem that we're solving and why do we value that before, but let's do it in a practical scenario. What I'd like to do is I'll give an answer and I'll have one of you yell out either what's the problem you're solving or why do we value that. All right. Actually, we could probably have somebody who's currently holding a microphone do that. Maybe just a why would do the job. All right. As staff, I want to add a country drop-down to the registration form because it's missing.
I want to add a country drop-down to the registration form because it's missing. Why? Because we want to determine where a user is.
Cool. All right. I didn't describe that well. I just needed you to ask me why.
Oh, okay.
Then I'll have a crack at the next round. Why? Excellent. Because I've determined that there isn't that drop-down currently on the registration form.
Why?
Because I would like to be able to sift through users and classify them based on country.
Why?
Because I need some more data about where to focus my marketing efforts.
And why do you need to do that?
Because I'm looking to increase my prospect generation rate with my marketing. Wait, cool. So now what we've done is we've landed at what the true business value is of this piece of work. As an engineer, who here would have seen that user story and thought, I'll just go add a country drop down to the registration form? Yeah? Anyone? Cool? Right. Guess what data you can get out of Google Analytics if the engineer knew what the why was? That's called a no-code solution. Guess what? You now spent that time building more of your product because you did a better job at asking questions about why as an engineer to your business stakeholder. Engineers are just as culpable for asking questions here as the founders of these organizations. Right. How am I going for time?
You good? 5 minutes?
Yeah, cool. I'll try and wrap up quickly so we can do some questions. Agile ceremony. I'm going to... no good presentation about communication inside a tech startup is useful if it doesn't at least touch on agile ceremony. Has anybody here not heard of at least one of these four? Put your hand up if all of these concepts are new. Right, cool. I will race through that if we've already come across it. Daily stand-up, 1 minute per person, daily-ish. Days beginning with T, like Tuesdays and Thursdays, are also fine. Weekly, I probably don't recommend. But if we're doing 1 minute per person-ish, it's okay to do them 3, 4, 5 days a week, no matter how small you are, because it can be a 5-minute meeting in a small team. It's not that much time for converged communication. The agenda, each person. Yesterday I did. Today I will. I'm blocked on. Any questions? No? Pass to the next person in your stand-up. That's all it needs to be. If you're in a stand-up that takes more than 3 minutes per person, then that comes up in retro. We'll talk about retros next, or in a couple slides' time. Backlog grooming. Who here has had the experience of putting something at priority 3 on the backlog and then not seeing it for 4 years? Yeah, cool. Right, priority 3 on the backlog is where great ideas go to die. This is why backlog grooming is important. Backlog grooming helps you surface the items that with your with your why and your what, that why then surfaces what the value is, and you can reprioritize and pick up those gems that somebody mentioned 6 months ago that's now finally relevant. Frequency, weekly-ish. The agenda, wherever you write down your tasks, I hope you write them down. It's not just in an inbox somewhere. Trello, Jira, Microsoft Planner, any of these tools will do the job just fine, but please write them down. Once you write them down, put a status on them. Put 4 types of statuses. New things. That means all we have is a 5-word title, and we need to put a who, what, and why on it. Define. It's going to take too long to put a who, what, and why on it, so we assign an action to a person that knows the most about it to do a who, what, and why, and we come back next week. Excellent. We don't take up the time of everybody in the room while we flesh this out. Status, estimate. We now have a who, what, and why on it. We can hand it to a subject matter expert to put some time around it, and then we can come back and have a look at the time versus the value and make a good have a good conversation about where in the priority list it should sit. Cool. Sprint planning, 30 to 60 minutes, weekly-ish. Again, like with backlog grooming, the duration and the frequency are largely a function of how mature and how experienced with each other your team is. If you have 3 junior engineers and 1 founder who's doing this for the first time, these should be weekly. If you have 4 senior engineers that have been working together for 5 years and they have been gradually refining and improving this process via great quality retrospectives, your sprint plannings can be 6 weeks apart. I have done that successfully. It is awesome when you get there. It takes many years and many senior engineers for that to be a real thing. So weekly-ish for the frequency of your sprint planning. For this audience, 1 or 2 weeks. Agenda. In your sprint planning, you collectively pick high priority work from the top of the backlog. You'll always add too much. Burn down charts are a lie. You never finish all the work in the sprint. If you do, you didn't put enough work in the sprint. That's okay though. Sprints aren't something that you have to deliver all of the content within. They're mostly a promise to each other that we're going to strive towards this goal. If you can theme your sprints to a certain goal, so if we've got 5 tasks that your engineer is working on, if they're all in the same space, A theme for your sprint is a powerful tool for lowering the cognitive burden on whoever your subject matter experts are, both on the product side and on the engineering side. Retrospectives. I mentioned it before. The beating heart of Agile. Are you doing Agile? Here's how you answer the question. Do you have a retrospective that happens on a regular cadence where you have decisions that get written down and then an action to implement that decision, preferably document it as well as make a change in the real world, and then you go back the next time you're on a retrospective and review those past actions? If you do those things, congratulations, you're doing Agile because you will get a little bit better every sprint. If you're not doing those things, what you are doing is pretend Agile, and that's okay. But I strongly recommend that you get retrospectives going post-haste. Right, 15 to 30 minutes. It's okay if they run longer. Of all the different types of Agile ceremonies, the one type of ceremony that you don't cut short is retrospectives. If you're having a great conversation about how to get better at something, if you're talking about sharpening the axe, you don't break to go and cut wood. So retrospectives are your axe sharpening vehicle, and you should always love them as deeply and as seriously as you love your one-on-ones as a people manager. They are the most important sessions of your week. Right. How to have a great retrospective. Each person in the team shares a keep and a stop. In fact, there's dozens of different patterns here for keep or stop, or I loved, I want to continue, and it made me sad, or there's, look them up online, mountains and mountains. TeamRetro.com has squillions of them, and an interesting, very cheap product which overcomplicates it a little bit, but if you need help, then try it out. But discuss one of these things to improve from all the things where people share to keep and a stop, and then make a decision. And then assign an action to someone to deliver on that decision. And notice the top bit feels like it comes last, but it actually comes first. Every retro, a past actions review, please. Otherwise, those actions go into the void and nobody looks at them because of the proverbial fire hose of new features that they needed to work on. Right. Look at that. I got too deep on retros. We could spend an entire 30 minutes on this. My presentation has crashed, but I would love to talk to anybody afterwards about it if you're interested in retros. It is the beating heart of your productive team's ceremony. Right. If you remember nothing else from today, everyone should ask why questions. Everyone in your organization, in your team. Contractors, doesn't matter. Full-time employees, doesn't matter. Somebody who's joining in who's a friend of one of the engineers or one of the founders, they should be encouraged to ask why questions. If it's not clear to them, it's not clear to you. Pursue answers until no how remains. Keep asking why. Try and find a more creative way of doing it than the 6-year-old's version of, but why? But why? There are better ways to do it. But yes, keep asking why until there is no how left. Capture 3 things before it gets to estimate and solution design, or the how. Those 3 things are who, what, and why. This works whether the size is 2 hours or 2 months. You can apply those same 3 questions and get something material out of it. Use retrospectives to continuously improve. I won't read that out 3 times. It's there 3 times for a good reason. It's how you get better. You should all be doing this. During the Q&A, I'd love for you to share practical examples of the pain points or the lived reality of where you are in the workplace at the moment. We can talk about that and learn from it as a group. And onwards to the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. Who has some questions? All right.
Thanks. Thank you for that. That's really great. Really good summary, actually, and quite a commercial view of it as well, which is helpful. Which begs my question, which is actually about the how. And I can't write a line of code. I understand what software can do, but I can't write a line of code. And so, with a commercial view of the requirements, and as a founder and needing to develop solutions, the bit that I always worry about is that the how is
is the right how for the what and the why. And how do you get to that?
That's a really good question. So, I didn't touch on it in the session deliberately, but there is a caveat to the how should come later mantra that I've been harping on today, and that is you can capture a who, what, and why, and if you want, you can do a possible how, and you can drop some notes about what you think might be a useful starting point to guide the conversation. I'm judicious about using that because, again, you don't want to narrow the thought process of your subject matter experts, but what I like to answer your question specifically here is ask for 3 scales of a light touch how from your subject matter experts. What can I get for 2 hours? What can I get for 2 days? What can I get for 2 weeks? And you'll find that there's highly diminishing returns as you go up that effort scale on those estimates. You might find that the 2-hour version gets you 40% of the total value once you've talked through that estimate or that solution with your subject matter expert. The 2-day version might only get you 70%, and the 2-week version might only get you 85 or 90%. So ask for 3 and do the hour-day week. You can pick any number you want, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks. But ask for 3 and get them to do the 5-minute version of that, and then get them to do the 2-hour version of the one that you picked out of those 3.
I have a question. The controversial DDH and Co. have done a thing called Shape Up. Are you over that sort of process of no backlog grooming and things like that? Just wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Oh, I sure do. Wide and deep, but we'll keep this one brief. The answer is, if that's what your team chose in a retro, then it's the right technique for you. This is why I like to center the entire of your agile methodology around regular, all-inclusive retrospectives where you make real change to how your organization works. I personally am abhorred by the idea of what Shape Up does, and I would never steer a team in that direction.
Can you give context to the audience just so they understand?
Yeah, sure. It's been a while since I've looked into it, but go to Shape Up, or just Google Shape Up, and they go through a whole, I guess it's similar to Agile, but the idea is every 6 weeks kind of the founders of the company sit down and go, what's important right now? And then it goes into a Shape Up process where it's like fat marker sketches, wireframes, that sort of thing, into a similar process like what might end up here. But they don't recommend spending hours going through a backlog of tasks. The way that works is every employee in the company kind of just keeps it in their brain, and when it comes to that 6 weeks, everyone like pitches the most important thing in their brain at the time, which is weird. That's my general understanding of it.
Cool. For this audience, I find that concept quite challenging because it's very early stage. For a slightly more mature, say a scale-up, mid-late stage scale-up, then I think that could be really powerful. But again, the key takeaway is the correct decision for your team is whatever your team have chosen together in a collaborative conversation about what was working well and what could be improved. So there's no one right answer. You saw that massive agile landscape map. There's answers in every possible flavor, and they're called Scrum, and they're called Kanban, and they're called Scrumban, and they're called Scaled Agile Framework, and they're called Nexus Agile, and it goes on. And there are opinions forever about what set of pre-baked decisions your team could lift and shift and say, we don't need to do retrospectives about this. We can drop in a pattern that somebody else's team has already done a bunch of retrospectives on, and here's where they landed. And all these frameworks are just, here's where they landed from their retrospectives. So you can either try and find one that feels about right, or what I would recommend for all early stage companies is you don't try and find one, you build the one that works for you, because the amount of energy that goes into trying to adopt Scrum or Kanban or Scrumban or Nexus is going to be far greater than you just having conversations about which bits didn't work well and should probably change.
Here.
I think there's one little thing, like the stage that a lot of you are at is at the really kind of early stage. And I think if you want to essentially go, look, most of you are domain experts anyway, so you've come from an industry, you've seen a problem, and you've gone, do you know what, I think I can solve that myself. And you have an idea in your head as to what that software could and couldn't look like. And so my advice would be literally just start to get in your notebook, start to sketch up what a problem with, because often you are the person answering why, because you are that person. Obviously go and get validation from your peers, but in that instance, if you are at that next stage, go and draw it up. If you can, the way we did it is I learned some software and basically started to produce like some UIs and kind of understood for myself what was the software I wanted to produce, and then go and talk to a developer. Don't go and Patrick's going, no, talk to us first. But no, then go and talk to a developer. And then they'll be able to, it's a lot easier for a developer to see something and visualize it than you trying to explain it. Okay? Who's next?
I just put a screenshot up here of my favourite Twitter account of all time, Shit User Story. So head there if you want to learn how to create some good user stories. Like, as a crypto bro, I want to tell everyone we are taking back control from the evil, wealth-driven ultra-rich so that I too may become ultra-rich. And it goes on and on. But, you know, this is one of my favourites actually. As a recipe reader, I want to dismiss cookies, have a video ad follow me down the page and read why this cake conjures up the memories of the author's childhood before reaching the actual recipe, so that I feel connected to the author before fully committing to mixing ingredients. I think this is awesome. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that. Any other questions?
Dave?
Sorry.
Run your mic, go.
Sorry.
Anytime, Dave. With these questions to get to the why and stuff like that, it seems like something that could be solved by like a basic kind of template, really. Is there any products out there like that, like plugins for, you know, email or anything like that, where before you just shoot off a directive, you can actually get clear about why you're shooting it off and they can see that, so it just saves this back and forth process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm reticent to recommend a product in this regard because I know something that's free that you can use right away. It's called make the minimum standard for a piece of work to go to estimate. You have one sentence on who, one sentence on what, and one sentence on why. Congratulations, you don't need any software. You now have everything that you need to capture this. Normalize that pattern. There is a step before. That's a little bit of cognitive workload to put in, and sometimes you think of something and you just want to capture the concept. You don't want to put the effort into that 5 minutes of mapping out a great who, what, and why. In that case, the title of your task, which is none of the who, what, or why, is just a placeholder for a conversation. So whatever 5 to 8 words you can write down, or 3 to 8 words that captures that essence so that you can come back later and fill out the who, what, why. That's really all you need, and you can do that with Microsoft Planner, or you can do that with Trello, or you can do that with Jira, or you can do that with Pipedrive, or you can do that with HubSpot. It doesn't really matter what tool you use.
Excellent. One more, I think, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you. I'm tearing up here. This is what I do, and it's something that's desperately needed, particularly in software, but the software industry struggles to value all of this. It all comes back to the if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. No, to your point, you know, I got a new job relatively recently, plugged in all my templates for user stories, all this kind of stuff, bashed out a lot of documentation. Probably on the back of this presentation is one on human-centered design, and that in a nutshell is just if you plan to make something for people, talk to those people, find out exactly what it is they actually value. But yeah, you can go down lots of rabbit holes. There's a number of blue screens there, but just find places that value thinking about things before just jumping in. That's all.
There is one particular framework that I would recommend you go and watch. Go and watch the video, if anything, and it's called Jobs to be Done. Have you ever heard of that one? Have you heard of Jobs to be Done?
Which one?
Jobs to be Done. No?
I've heard of it, haven't used it.
Go and read it. It's really interesting. It's essentially like, why is a McDonald's milkshake why it is? And there's a real reason as to why it's thick, it's in a straw, it's like that. And it's because McDonald's went and did a lot of research as to what job was it to be done when people were going. And it was like a breakfast supplement, and that's the reason it is why it is that. But you can apply jobs to be done to the tech industry, to anything really. And you just go Google jobs to be done. There's a professor there. Go and watch it. It's super, super interesting. It gets down to the heart of why people do stuff. It's like the next level down of the 5 whys. Okay. It's a framework. So it's a framework. It's not even a framework. It's just Google jobs to be done, and you'll understand what it is. Who's heard of jobs to be done? Yeah. It's a book. It really is a great way. For me, it was like we looked at Agile. I'm a Scrum Master, and it was actually jobs to be done. That was the one that I kind of went, I kind of get it, right? And so just you Google YouTube jobs to be done. There's a guy, professor, that kind of does it, and it's really interesting. Listen to the McDonald's one because you go, it makes sense why McDonald's milkshake is the way it is.
That's left me with one more.
I don't have a question, but I would like to add, if we have time, just quickly. Just a couple of points, because a couple of, I guess, the keywords, human-centered design and what you just shared. So I have actually background in design thinking. I have lived in San Francisco, where I had an opportunity to go study design thinking methodology at Stanford D School. And I have run some actually design thinking workshops back in Silicon Valley. And I have taught, when I say taught, basically, yes, I've run some workshops. And the workshop was value of empathy in design thinking, in design process. And that's basically going out, talking to people, inferring the meaning, asking them very open-ended question, going why, and based on the data you get, you infer the meaning and you are designing your solution around that. And another thing to add what Dave shared, again, this is to every industry, but if you have a domain knowledge, and before even you do the sketches, before you go to developer, try to kind of launch it and do it manually, if possible, to validate your hypothesis, because initially it's just hypothesis. And then if you have some traction and if you feel like, we have a lot of repeat customers, they're coming back again, and then you can't handle it manually, at that point you go and talk to developer, because ultimately the technology is like you are automating what you're doing it manually.
I really like those points, and there's from the last 2 updates, I'd love to summarize and share a couple of thoughts about both of them. If you're the person who is responsible for the product in your organization, you're the person that leads the conversation about the why, 1 day in 5, 20% of your time should be spent speaking to actual users, or at the very least looking at data generated by actual users. This is the only way that you can have meaningful contributions to the why, and it is your responsibility, if you're the person that has the final say on the why, to spend at least 20% of your time interacting with the people that are using your product, the who. The second piece there, you as a founder will be stressed. You will have times where your inbox grows by 60 emails during a single 1-hour meeting. Having empathy and support and time for your team and bringing them on the journey of loving the who, loving the people that are using your product and loving the problem that you're solving for them is going to be one of the hardest pieces for you to try and find time and headspace for. But you can't succeed if you're the only person in your organization that deeply cares about the problem. You need everybody to deeply care about the problem in your organization, and that means putting the effort into communicating about the why and the who, and taking a deep breath and bringing your best self to all of those conversations so that you can create safety and space for your team members to also buy into that who and that why. That's it.
Thank you. Woo, fantastic point to sum up on. Thank you so much, Lee. That was awesome. We'll get stuff out of that, going back to the shop and going to implement some of this stuff. Cool. All right, so we're going to turn this place back into a co-working space. We're going to throw furniture at you, but we've got churros at the back and some cool food. Help yourself. You're going to hang around for a few minutes. If you've got some questions, have a chat.
I don't bite.
And we'll see you back here in 2 weeks' time. We've got Reese from Nowhere Man Brewery talking about their other side acquisition and all things in the brewery industry. Should be fun. See you then. Cheers.
Thanks so much. My pleasure.
To give you an illustration,